Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. We look at rates today. So a rate compares two quantities of a different type, whereas a ratio compares two quantities of the same type. So a common rate that you would hear about all the time would be speed. So you know that speed is distance over time, and that's a comparison of two quantities. It compares how far you've travelled in a given time. Distance and time are obviously not the same thing. They're measuring different things. That's why we say they're two quantities of a different type. So this would be a rate. A ratio, you know, when you're cooking or something, you might use a ratio of, I don't know, milk to water or something like that if you're making coffee. So they're two quantities of the same type because they're both measured in milliliters or cups or however you want to measure it. So we're not going to look at ratios. I just wanted you to know the difference between a rate and a ratio. We are going to look at rates. So let's just start off with an easy example. So I run 200 meters in 25 seconds. I want to write it as a rate. So you probably already know that when we're talking rates, it's something per something. For speed, it would be like, meters per second, distance per time. So it probably helps for you to write it as a fraction. So we'll write 200 meters per 25 seconds. Now, just like a normal fraction, if you can, simplify this. But usually what we want to do, though, is we want to go further. When we say simplify, we don't just mean find a number that goes into the top number and the bottom number. We usually want the bottom number to be a unit, like 1. So we want it to be 1 second. We want to write this as meters per 1 second. In other examples, we might want to write kilometers per 1 hour. Or in heart rate, we might want to write beats per 1 minute. So that's what we mean when we simplify this. So if I want to convert this to 1 second, just like for normal fractions, what I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. So to go from 25 seconds to 1 second, I divide 25. So I've also got to do the exact same here. I've got to divide the top by 25 so that these fractions are the same. So 200 divided 25 is just 8. So it's 8 meters per 1 second. So again, what I've done to the top of the fraction, I've also done to the bottom. So it's helpful to write it as a fraction when you're doing calculations. We usually write it like this though. So that's 8 meters per second. That's a rate. It is comparing the distance I've travelled with the time. Okay, so sometimes you'll need to use these rates to make other calculations. So let's look at a few examples of that. So assuming I run at this same speed of 8 meters per second, how far would I run in 2 minutes? So I'm going to write the rate as a fraction again. When I'm doing calculations, it's helpful to write as a fraction. So I've got 8 meters per 1 second. Now what I'm essentially being asked, how far, so I'm just going to put a box there. How many meters would I be able to run in 2 minutes? Okay. Now, it's exactly the same idea that I was just talking about. We want to make these two equivalent fractions. So whatever I've done to the bottom, I must also do to the top. So obviously, to figure out what we've done to the bottom, it'd be easy if we put things in the same unit. So 2 minutes, it'd be easy if we make this into seconds. So, of course, 2 minutes is the same as 120 seconds. So now it's clear what I've done. I've gone from 1 second to 120 seconds, and that's by timesing by 120. So if I times the bottom by 120, I have to times the top by 120. So 8 times 120 is 960. So if I can travel 200 meters in 25 seconds, at that same speed, I could travel 960 meters in 120 seconds. Again, you probably should write a sentence like, therefore I can travel 960 meters in 2 minutes. All right, let's look at another example. So assuming I travel at the same speed, how long would it take to travel 1,500 meters? So we're going to do the same process. We're going to write this as 8 meters per second. Now, what I'm saying is I've traveled 1,500 meters and I want to know the time. So I just put a box there. So the only difference between this and the previous question is that now I'm trying to find what number goes on the bottom here. So in the last question, I was trying to find how many meters. This time I'm trying to find how many seconds. So it's the same process though. I figure out what did I do to the top, and then I must do the same to the bottom. So I've gone 8 meters in 15, I've gone 8 meters per second, and I've got to find what do I do to 8 meters to get 1500 meters. So what do you times by 8 to get 1500? Well, if you don't know that, which is fine, you just put in your calculator 1500 divide 8. And what you get there is 187.5. So I have times the top by 187.5, so I must also times the bottom by 187.5. So that's pretty easy. 1 times 187.5 is just that, 187.5. So I have my answer. It would take me 187.5 seconds to travel 1500 meters. And make sure you pay attention to the question. It might ask you how long, it might say how many minutes or whatever. If I had to convert this to minutes, I just divide by 60. So what would be really helpful is also if you use your calculator, convert it to a fraction. So 187.5 seconds, so 3 minutes is 180 seconds. And then there's an extra 7.5 seconds. Okay, so make sure you know what the question's asking you. All right, I'm just going to give you one more example involving converting rates. Please pause and copy this down if you need it. Okay, so in this question, I'm using the same rate, 200 meters in 25 seconds, but I'm going to convert it to kilometers per hour. So we remember how to write this as a rate, 200 meters in 25 seconds, and that's the same as 8 meters per second. So what I want to do is convert this to kilometers per hour. So I do it methodically. I convert the top to kilometers, and I convert the bottom into hours. So how do I convert meters and kilometers? Well, you're going to have to do a lot of conversions in these type of things. In rates, it involves a lot of conversions. So make sure you know how to do this. Please ask if you need any help. So we know that 1 kilometre, I'm just writing at the top right-hand corner, is 1,000 metres, okay? So if I want to go from kilometres to metres, what I've done to get from 1 to 1,000 is times by 1,000. But if I want to go the other way, metres to kilometres, to get from 1,000 to 1, I've divided by 1,000. So if I want to go from metres to kilometres, I divide by 1,000. So I'm going to take 8 and divide by 1,000, and I get 0.008. So 8 metres is 0.008 kilometres. Now we're going to convert seconds to hours. So 1 hour equals 60 minutes. It equals 60 minutes times 60 seconds. So 60 times 60, if you put on your calculator, is 3,600. So therefore, there are 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. So same as what we did before. If I want to go from seconds to hours, I'm going from 3,600 to 1. I need to divide by 3,600. So 1 second is 3,600 of an hour. Now this is the correct rate, but it doesn't actually make any sense, right? Because there's a fraction on the bottom, decimal on the top, it doesn't really indicate much to us. So let's rewrite this and use our equivalent fractions. So we have our rate, 0.008 kilometres per 1/3,600th of an hour. So what I want to do is I want to make this 1 hour. So what do I have to do to get from here to there? So it's 1 hour. So what I have to do is I have to multiply by 3,600. So I times the bottom by 3,600. I also have to do the same to the top. So I just go 0.008 times 3,600. And if I put that on my calculator, I get 28.8. So it's 28.8 kilometres per 1 hour, or 28.8 kilometres per hour. Okay? So if that was a little confusing for you, then this is what I suggest you do a question like this. So when we have 8 metres per 1 second and we want to put it in kilometres per hour, what we do is we just write the rate, kilometres per hour, and then we just perform the operations one after the other. So what I need to do is I need to take 8, I need to divide it by 1,000 to put it into kilometres, but then what I need to do is I need to multiply by 3,600. Now what makes this confusing is that I'm multiplying by 3,600. Even though I told you to go from seconds to hours, you need to divide by 3,600. And that's because seconds is on the bottom of the fraction. So if the quantity is on the bottom of the fraction, where you would normally times, you divide. Where you would normally divide, you times. You invert the operation. So hopefully you'll understand one of these methods. Now, if you put 8 divided by 1,000 times 3,600 on your calculator, you will get the same answer of 28.8 kilometres per hour. So if you prefer to do it like this with equivalent fractions, or do it this way, which is quicker but maybe a little harder to understand, I don't mind as long as you get the right answer. Sorry for the long video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.